Hi, thank you. So first I'm gonna share my screen. So welcome. My name is Balbina Morales. I'm from Mexico. This is my first semester abroad. I'm born and raised in Mexico, so it's been a roller coaster of emotions coming here and being part of this program, but it has been great and I have loved it. And so I'm going to start with my presentation. It's about climate change impact and Mexico's sustainable development. My certificate is of climate change and the environment. So as I have mentioned, I'm from Mexico, and one of my passions has always been about the oceans, about sustainability, about what should we doing, what are we doing, and what should we do. So as you can see, this is a picture of me and a friend that we went on a road trip in Thanksgiving to the Bixby Creek Bridge that is here close to the Bay Area over the coast, and we went all along the coast because all I wanted to see was miles and miles long of oceans. It has always been one of my passions, and also I took the classes Oceans that was part of the BISP certificate, which made my passion even stronger. I was very excited to start this podcast. So, but also I am very patriotic. Mexico is part of my heart. I plan on working there. I plan on making it better. I plan on doing something that can make. Oh, I'm the ones that are in the waiting room. Do I actually do something or just let them there?
We'll let them in.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I work right now in a business consulting that I really loved, but after this semester and after this research, I love consulting, but I would much rather be in a sustainability consultant. So I plan, and my dream job would be to own one in Mexico by my own, and it would be great. So I decided to do a podcast because even though I like to read, I don't love it as much, and I prefer to listen to podcasts. I am the one that I wake up and the first thing I do, I listen to podcasts. I'm always like trying to learn about more things, and it's like instead of listening to music podcast, I go to the gym podcast. So it's like, okay, now it's my turn to actually make one. So I think it was all like a big connection, a big match, and I'm so excited to create it. So as I was saying, that my subject area was mostly about Mexico because I was born in Nuevo León in Monterrey, and this past summer we suffered like 2 to 3 weeks without any water. And seeing as like it has never happened to us before, and we decided to actually make a change after it was happening, and we knew that it was going to happen. It's like we have to do something about it. Like I want to learn to do something about it because it's not enough what we're doing, and we should do more. And because I actually suffered it for the first time, I was like, okay, I know a lot of people do manages with this every day, and until it happened to me, and I'm like, I gotta do something. So you can see at the very bottom, the right corner, that is like the natural resource that we had as water, and you can see it's completely empty. And then you can see that there's a lot of sargassum in Cancun, which is also one of the most touristy beaches in Mexico, that it's currently, again, suffering because of climate change. And then there's a lot of contamination and pollution in Nuevo León, in Monterrey, where I'm from, that they don't even let the kids from school like go out and play. It's prohibited because of the contamination in the air. And then there has been a few forest fires because the temperatures that it's getting really cold and then really dry, and people don't care enough to actually, like, when they do a fire, they don't care about like if the wind is too strong, if it's going to affect like its environment. And also the refineries. There is one of the biggest refineries in the world is in Mexico, and it's one of the 100 companies that pollute 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So, and our current president is promoting this refinery and opening a new one. So as you can see, Mexico has a lot going on right now, and what should we do about it? Is it doing anything? So my question is, what is Mexico's current position in sustainability, and what is it doing to achieve sustainable development? So as I mentioned before, why podcasts? And I think it's the best way to communicate people that are passionate about climate change like me and don't like to read or don't love it as much. And I try to make it fun and dynamic. I conducted some interviews, I did some research, I did some data analysis from there's a research project called Net Zero America that was created by Princeton, where they put a lot of data on 5 different scenarios of what would America look like if like they did certain investments in renewable energies. And from that, I did some data analysis on what would be the best for Mexico and what Mexico should be doing to actually achieve that. And then some of my joys while doing this is that I made some professional connection with my teachers while I did interviews with them, and I learned a lot of job opportunities about sustainability consulting. And I'm considering of writing a policy memo to our current governor in Nuevo León about all that I have learned, and that probably would be sending out when I come back home and probably doing something about it. And I changed a lot of topic ideas a few times while writing it, because while I was taking my classes that improved like my learning, what I was actually learning that I wanted to write about, it just like it made me more excited about what I was talking about, but also changed, like it made me work harder because I knew I had to research more and I had to learn more about what I was learning that I wanted to add to the podcast. But I knew that it was for the best, and I hope you like it as much as I did. So as I mentioned, that there are some of the expectations that I thought it was going to be like a 30-minute talk about what I have learned or about what is Mexico's current position, but it actually ended up being a 1 hour of very interesting and entertaining information from my friends that I also interviewed about their behavior and what do you think Mexico is like right now, and then about the position that my teacher, I take a class called Deplastify the Planet that my teacher is a CEO of the San Francisco School Lab, where it's an innovation and an entrepreneurship company that promotes sustainability and works with companies to eliminate the plastic. So it's great. And I learned a lot from him that actually made me move more towards this podcast. So some of the main things I learned is that energy efficiency is more important and easier to achieve. GDP and energy consumption have a direct relationship, and social cost of carbon emissions is not enough to incentivize sustainability. So where do I go from here? Like I mentioned before, I am in a business consulting right now, and I have already applied to this consulting companies because it changed my way of life, my way I see things, the behavior that I want to involve like in the future. So hopefully I become a consultant in one of the sustainability consultants and consulting companies, and hopefully make one of my own in Mexico in the future. So I'm gonna put I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm gonna put a little bit of my podcast so you can listen to it. Hello, and welcome to my podcast about climate change and sustainable development. My name is Balbina Morales, and today we're going to talk about Mexico's current position on sustainability, Mexico's state, Nuevo León too, and what should be done in the future. I will be first talking about what I have learned in my classes related to climate change, and we also have a couple of guests. Hope you find it interesting and entertaining. Globally, we emit around 50 billion tons of greenhouse gases each year, but you may ask, where do these emissions come from? 73.3% are part of the energy sector, which count for electricity, heat, and transport. Industrial processes are 5.2%, waste is 3.2%, and agriculture, forestry, and land is 18.4%. For those of you that wanted something to push you towards veganism, this is it. Due to the greenhouse gases emissions in our atmosphere, there is an increase in temperature that produces global warming. Global warming only refers to rising surface temperatures, like we mentioned, while climate change includes warming and the side effects of warming. The Earth has experienced climate change before. The Earth's average temperature has fluctuated throughout the planet's 4.54 billion year history. The planet has experienced long cold periods called ice ages and warm periods called interglacials on 100,000 year cycles for at least the last million years.
Today's climate change is overwhelmingly due to an increase in greenhouse gas emissions that has increased global average temperatures much faster at any point since modern civilization and probably faster than any interglacial warm period of the last million of years. So now I'm going to talk about what I learned in my class Oceans. What is the effect of climate change in the oceans? El Niño and La Niña are natural phenomena that have been occurring for thousands of years. There are climate patterns that have worldwide positive and negative effects on our weather. El Niño refers to above sea average temperature and La Niña below sea average temperatures. Because of the different temperatures, they can cause disease, heat stress, malnutrition, respiratory diseases, and more. Because of the climate change, these temperatures will increase dramatically and there will be extreme weather events. Also, this goes hand in hand with carbon sequestration because the ocean is responsible for capturing most of the carbon emissions that are human-made and from the world and planet-made. The increase in water temperatures causes the density of the water to decrease, thus slowing down the thermohaline circulation, so the ability to absorb carbon dioxide decreases. But at the same time, due to the excess of emissions, the ocean absorbs too much carbon and it leads to sea level rise, ocean acidification, ice melting, and more. And due to that, the balance of the ecosystem of the ocean instability causes death of many animals and overproduction of sea algae, which is a cause of excess sargassum in shores today. Many lives that depend on sea animals are already suffering the consequences and don't have enough to eat. We saw a movie in class where they showed that there is too much of undocumented fishing that leads to scarce population of fishing that is necessary to balance the ecosystem. Most of the fishing comes from local fishers that have always depended on fishing but don't stop to think of how many fishes they can actually fish before leaving the sea without them, and more, they don't even report it. It is now an individualistic thinking that leads to the unbalance of an ecosystem. That leads to the debate of personal responsibility or corporate responsibility. In my energy and society class, we have learned that there are 100 companies that they are responsible for 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. And the question is, are we as individuals responsible for changing our behavior towards sustainability, like no compulsive buying, excess use of plastic, long showers and baths, etc., or should there be government regulation on the 100 companies, in other words, add a social cost of carbon to each ton of carbon emitted? When Barack Obama was president, the United States used to have a social cost of carbon of $50 per ton of carbon dioxide. But when Trump became president, he lowered it to $8 per ton of carbon dioxide. Obama used to have an extensive team of...
Okay, I know that the time has passed, so I'm just gonna push it. It goes on for more other 55 minutes. Thank you. Do you have any questions? If you want to hear more from the podcast, I will send a link through the chat if you can listen it. I already finished it, so it's good to go.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I do have a question I'd like to start with. I remember when we met and talked about your experience, I was impressed with how much experience you have, but doing research and the projects you've been a part of, like making tequila using less water, concrete using no water, power plants with only renewable energy, things like that. So I was just curious, given how experienced you already were when you started this project, is there anything that you learned or came across that really surprised you when you were doing this research?
What I already knew, because like back in, I know in Berkeley too, but back in Monterrey, our education system is solely based on projects. So we come into class and the first thing that they do is they give you, this is the project that you're going to work on, and then they teach us things that help us build the project. And all of the projects are about sustainability. So it's more like they have hardwired it into our minds, like if we want to work on any project, we should work on sustainability. So I've always practiced that. So coming here and learning about, like, I always knew that like I needed to work on sustainability, but I didn't know like why, or I didn't know like what was a real issue. And actually coming to Berkeley and having my classes solely like have like what is the impact. So like my classes would tell me about like okay, there is this power plants, but there's that efficiency. And we will actually look into numbers like, okay, there's this car. If you drive this car, what is the difference in actually the emissions or the cost or what it would actually pollute? Like I never knew like into like make it into numbers of what actually is like what like our carbon footprint, what are we actually doing? So it really surprised me like that even though that I'm doing the sustainability projects, it's not enough if we actually want to make a change with the numbers that I found like here in Berkeley. It's like if we actually want to reduce our carbon emissions, it's not enough to change your car or it's not enough to go vegan. It's a much bigger impact that should involve like all the world, because something that really surprised me is that it's actually really, really hard to add a social cost of carbon, because you don't know, like most companies that pollute a lot, they put themselves up in like very high in the atmosphere, that like they don't actually have to emit carbons because the air takes them to like another city. So like they don't have the problem, but the other has a problem. So it's like we all have to work together, because if the other city has a problem of what we are creating, then what about the other city that is actually polluting, that is like harming us? So it's like people don't want to actually like, it's okay, I don't want to like, the reason why Trump actually lowered the social cost is because it was only taking consideration like what is happening inside the US, but it doesn't account for what is polluting, like that it's taking to the other cities. That it's why we need to work as a team.
Thank you. And that's the situation here where the pollution from the Bay Area blows into San Joaquin Valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Balbina, superb presentation. I really enjoyed it. We have about 2 more minutes if there's other questions or comments.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, and you have a great podcast voice.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, that was also the reasons why I decided to actually do a podcast, because I've always been good at being a guest speaker. So
yeah, you've got a very distinct voice, and it's nice. I guess one quick question I have. Yeah, carbon is bad, but what do we do then about development? Mexico is not a poor country, actually, but it does have high inequality, and there are regions that are underdeveloped. So how would those regions be lifted out of poverty, let's say? And usually the answer is, of course, through industrialization, through development, through harvesting natural resources. So how can we pull people out of poverty and at the same time not destroy the environment?
I think because what, like, you mean like as like what is happening right now, what the current president is doing, or what should we do that is not being done?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes, more conservative leaders like Bolsonaro in Brazil are doing things like clear cutting the Amazon rainforest, and that's terrible. But on another level, when people go down and they interview the people who are doing the deforestation, many of them are starving. They're trying to feed their families. So how can we roll back carbon and at the same time not push people into poverty or keep them in poverty?
I think that the problem is that in like right now in Mexico, there are like by itself, Mexico can't do a lot because its public budget, it's too low to move towards innovation and as you say, like and sustainable development. So it's like they should be allowed of international companies, because Mexico has a lot of potential to work with wind and solar energy, but it doesn't have the infrastructure and it doesn't have the money to actually do it. But there's a lot of companies or a lot of countries outside of Mexico that want to actually do something about it, but because of the current president doesn't want, like, wants to be energy like supplied like independent, because he puts money on the refineries, because he wants to give more jobs to people, and he wants to Mexico like don't need to buy energy from other countries. But at the same time, it's like, why would you want to do that if you know that the air is not going to be breathable anymore? If it's right now, they're not letting people out like to play. They're not letting the students out to play because of the contamination is very bad. And the only thing that it's going to do, it's going to make it more bad. So it's like some things that you have to do for today that's going to be a little harmful, but it's for the better future, for the better tomorrow. Because in 100 years and 150 years, they're not thinking about what is going to happen then. That is something that we can do now to actually change it. So even though they want to they don't want to drive more people into poverty. It's like right now it's poverty, but in the future they're not gonna be even able to breathe or even to have drinkable water or to even have water. If right now we're suffering with not enough water, I don't imagine in the future what it would be like. So what they should actually do, I think it's both, like what I was talking in the podcast, that it's like, should it be human responsibility or should it be corporate responsibility? I think it's a little mix of both. It's like education to the people. It's like because of the inequality in Mexico, most people are not educated enough and they don't actually know what is happening and they don't know what to do about it. So it's like, what can the government do? What can people do? What can the companies do to actually have a solution, like as a whole, not just one part of the sector to actually do it.
Balbina, thank you so much for an incredible presentation and topic. And we would really value your link in the chat. That would be great if we can have the opportunity to listen to it in the future. And I will connect with you one-on-one too, because I want to ask you some other questions about your podcast.
Of course.
Thank you. Well done.